Okay, Ivor Hamilton. Hello, buddy. How you doing?
Not too bad, Scott. It's an exciting time of year. It's a very exciting time of year. If you remember the movie Retreat and Vince Vaughn, it's like, what's exciting about this time? Spring playoffs, right? So here we are. The playoffs are starting. The Raps going in against Cleveland. They start today. If you're tuning into us on the Saturday,
I didn't
and
even know they were in the playoffs, honestly, and I'm a big Raptors fan, but I kind of, a bit of a bandwagoner. I
yeah,
hadn't been watching, and all of a sudden it's like, what?
first time in four
Wow.
years, right? So Darko's
Yeah.
done a great job with it, with the team, and done a whole rebuilding process. So Raptors in for first time in 4 years. They're going to have the Jurassic Park again that people can come down and view, and they're not going to charge you money to watch it like they are going to do with the World Cup viewing parties now, which is a little ridiculous. And the
Yeah.
NHL playoffs start today. Buffalo in
Go
against
Buffalo.
a Buffalo in against Boston, and to illustrate where the Leafs went, they finished the top. They were number one in the East last year. They had
Oh
108
yeah.
points and 30 points less than they had last year. Not their worst season, but one of their worst, and it's just huge
So who are the
disappointment.
Canadian teams? You and I are both the same as we cannot just take ourselves to the point of supporting Montreal because
No,
because
Montreal
we
is
know
going
how
to be.
much Montreal fans like
Oh,
just
Montreal.
shit on the Leafs. So
Oh,
we remember that.
yes.
So it's Montreal. Who else is
Versus Tampa Bay, uh, Ottawa versus Carolina. So that's probably going to be a short series, and Edmonton versus Anaheim. And Anaheim is, you know, had a huge comeback this year. So I think Edmonton still has a leg up, but Anaheim is very very strong. And my favorite U.S. team is Pittsburgh because of Crosby, and they're playing against the Flyers in there. And I saw something on a blog yesterday. Just there's a little grassroots movement going. If Ovechkin and Crosby retire this year, the grassroots movement is to retire both number 8, which is Ovechkin's number, and 87, Crosby's number, not only from those teams but for the entire NHL, which I think is very classy of them
wow,
to do that if they do.
very very cool. Who's Buffalo playing?
Buffalo is playing Boston, and
Okay,
as if you're a Leaf fan, we know that Boston always gave us a terrible
hell,
hard
yeah,
time, right? So,
yes,
mainly due
annoying team.
when Brad
They're up there in the
Marchand was on
most
the team.
annoying team to play.
Oh yeah, that Buffalo. I mean, Boston always had our number. Partly, because Brad Marchand was on the team, and then he went to Florida. So, anyway, he's playing golf with the Leafs. So, there you go. Um, anyway, the other thing is too, Scott. Happy Record Store Day. Um,
Yes.
it's for me, it's a sort of a rite of passage every year. I do try and go out and support the day.
Yes, you do.
I found last year I couldn't get what I really wanted on the Canadian side, so I had to do a little border jump to go and get. I was really after last year that Public Image debut record that had the U.S. mixes on it, and I found one at Revolver in Buffalo. So I may go across if I can't. My big chase this year is the Cure acoustic album.
Cool.
Anything the Cure does, all those remixes and stuff, those are great. But a Cure acoustic is really something that there hasn't been too much of. So I'm looking forward to try and get my hands on that. So
Do you go into that with a budget? Does Ivor Hamilton go, I'm going to limit it to $500 or what? How do you, do
yeah,
you,
well, I mean, you really have to, right? I mean, but if you see one or two things that like anything else, you go, I wasn't anticipating that. You saw something like, man, I should maybe get that. But the prices have gone so sky high that it's just one of those things where I'm like, you really have to limit yourselves. I mean, a few years back, I was at a conference, a jazz conference in Madrid, and the same weekend they had the Madrid Records convention going on, and it was literally like 2 minutes from my hotel, and I thought I'm going to go over there and check it out. And so, you go to any of those shows that are in Canada, 9 times out of 10, it's a little bit more technologically moving forward now, but 5 or 6 years ago, they were all cash transactions, right? So you got to go in with a couple of $100 and you pay for whatever it is. Don't pay tax. The one I went to in Madrid, all digital. Oh my God, Scott! I
Oh
said, oh, I'm
no,
going to only spend $100. I was
that's
down
trouble.
I was down 500 in the first, 10 minutes. So, and there was so many things there that I hadn't seen before. I'd never been to a
Oh
record show
man.
per se in Europe before, and it was like, and those ones on the continent, everybody comes from all over the continent. So you got guys coming in from, Czech Republic, guys coming in from Poland, guys all in from the UK. So they're
Wow.
much bigger events. And the world's biggest record collector show takes place in November in Holland. Alan and I were talking about going, but again, I'm like going, I would need to rent my own plane to get back. That's the, it's like, uh,
I don't do the record store thing, the record store day thing, but when I went record shopping, there were times when I would walk and stand in front of the front doors of, record peddlers,
yeah.
wherever it was, Record on Wheels, and just go, am I going to go in or not? Like sometimes it wasn't like I wasn't out to shop, but I'm downtown shopping maybe for shoes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then it'd be there, I'd have to walk past a record store. And there were times I literally looked at the doors and go, if I go in there, I am going to spend a lot of money. And I walked away sometimes because I knew I could, and I'd be
Oh yeah.
hours in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've done the same. It's just, man, oh man, like, especially when you see things that you wanted for a long time. But I'm at the
Yeah.
point in life where I have a lot of the things that I want. There's very few things that I'm really chasing. And I just can't get my head around some of the prices now, right? Like I'm sitting there looking at, especially the box sets. And as you know, I love the box sets, right? But
Yep.
a lot of these new box sets are pushing over 500 right now. And that's, you have to make some other decisions on like, well, shit, maybe I'm not going to get that maintenance on the car, or maybe I'm not, I'm not. So,
It's like
and,
I'm not going out for dinner. I was going to go out twice, 3 times this weekend. Maybe I'll
yeah,
just cook at home.
exactly.
We should do one just YouTube only episode where we'll do a tour of your collection in your big room and
Yeah.
just talk about some of the key pieces in there. That'd be fun.
Yeah, no, I'd love to do that at some point, so so there you go. So there's our little sports roundup for
Just to
you.
cover, by the way, we're going to be talking about the week of April 20th to 26th.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to cover. Just off the top, we've got some hot new announcements. We have teased about this before, about the CFNY documentary extended mix tour. We talked about Brampton. We have an on-sale date. I will explain that in a minute. And we have locked in Buffalo. That is happening. So we're super pumped about that. So Ivor, tell us all about it.
I mean, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who came out to our show in Stouffville too, and I want to thank
Oh, yeah.
Grant from the Slimes, his wife JoJo, for manning the merch table because our person had to drop out because of personal reasons. But we had a great time up there. So, and Roger Roadshow for being a part of it that night on the night as well. But yes. Next week we're out in Vancouver, so looking forward to that one too. Things are picking up too. I know, like Captain Phil goes, "Don't worry, Ivor. It's a walk up town or whatever, right?" So things are picking up, and it's going to be an old, it's like the CFNY West Coast family getting together. So tickets still available for the Hollywood Theater next Saturday on Broadway in Vancouver. So yes, let's get to the new shows. May 29th, Friday, May 29th, our first international screening and our first radio presents. And we are being presented by BTPM The Bridge. So I want to thank Tiff Bentley, Tom Calderon, William Sauer, and Mark Smith, the crew at BTPM The Bridge, who are going to be our co-presents down there. Donnie Cutsback, who's done all the groundwork for us to get us help get us across the border, as well as the Berardi immigration lawyer team, who's helped us with that. So Scott, you and I don't get stopped at the border. Anyway, the good news is we are on sale, and you can get tickets in advance at townballroom.com. It's $25. That's US dollars. This is the first screening in the U.S. First screening, probably the only one until we're working out something with PBS. That's just taking longer than we thought. But first and only screening. And for all you Buffalo people, I know you don't get TVO. So this is not only, you haven't seen the TVO bit, so you get the first and best version right off the top. And it's going to be a great night. Doors at 7, Doc at 8, Q&A, followed by the Video Road Show. I got Nicholas Pickles on the Wheels of Steel. So it's you and me and Liz who are going to be there at that one.
Right.
And going to be a great night. We will make sure the merch is available to our friends in Buffalo too. And for that one, by that point, the Blu-ray and DVD is going to be out. So we'll make sure that that's available to us. Now, going to Brampton.
Just before that, it's the Town Hall Theater, is it called?
It is called the Town Ballroom.
Town Ballroom. Thank you.
Town Ballroom. It is one of Buffalo's most renowned dates. And, you know, one of the things about that venue is there's a lot of underplays there, right? Like for Canadian bands, like The Hip has played in there before, and Arkells played in there recently, and the Beaches go in there and play. And it holds about 300 to 400 people in there. So it's not a big club, but it's very well renowned, and you get the who's who of bands coming to that club in Buffalo. We're very, very thrilled to be there. They got a great crew there, so I'm really looking forward to that night.
Yes.
And then we go the one that I'm really looking forward to, and this is the last date of the documentary screening. And Scott, what are we going to do after that? You know, what are we going to do? That is Saturday, June the 6th at the Cyril Clark Theater in Brampton. That is in the Loafers Lake area near Highway 10 in Sandalwood. You can get your tickets are available now. Tickets.brampton.ca. And everybody who purchased a ticket, we've made up, we've designed a special commemorative tour poster that lists all the dates all 9 dates that we did on this tour, and have listed every person who's been on the QA across all of our shows in Canada and the US. And this one will have our biggest panel to date for the Q&A. David Marston, Alan Cross, yours truly, Liz Janik, Scott Turner, and rounding it out, the wonderful Freddie P., Fred Patterson of Humble and Fred. 7 doors, 7:30 Doc, 9 p.m. Q&A. So that's the update on the tour. Looking forward to seeing you guys out there.
Yeah, and that's the final date. And I think out of all the people that worked at CFNY over the years, is Freddie the only person that still lives in Brampton? I'm wondering.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, he never left. He never left. So
yeah,
I think he is.
And we all lived there at one time, right? But
yeah, I mean,
I'll have to ask around. Yeah,
I think that he is the last person standing in Brampton. I mean, I got out in 1990, I think was when I moved, because I was working at that point. I was working down at in North
Downtown.
York or whatever at the Polygram office.
Oh yeah.
I just got killed.
Oh, that was a haul. Yeah.
So I got out. It's always nice. It's always nice to go back. I'm hoping that we, some of us go to Calypso Garden for a little Caribbean meal before that, and
a red stripe.
I'm going for a red stripe, and I know you're pushing for an after party, but I know people at our age. I would rather see Fred, throwing an afternoon pool party. But anyway, see what happens. But anyway, it's going to be an emotional night. It's going to be very special. I mean, not to say that all of these nights are going to be special, but Brampton is so special to us. I'm going to bring those plaques. If you've already seen the extended version, I'm going to bring those plaques that you see in the movie. We actually did 3 of them. There was one for 340 Main Street, one for 83 Kennedy Road. And if you go to Calypso Garden, that one is the only one that's actually posted for real. That one is in Calypso Garden below 83 Kennedy Road South. We pay tribute to Martin and Shep and Headley in that one. So
and it's still on the wall. It hasn't fallen
still on the wall.
Yet.
They loved it, and I'm hoping I'm going to go in. I've thought to myself, we should try and do this amongst of us. We should get Jai to come out of. I know he's retired now and laying low, but if we got Jai to come out, that would be pretty special to a lot of the CFNY staff, because He was everybody's pal at the time at the
Yeah, we all ate there
restaurant. Yeah.
and
So
drank there.
yes, we did. And
Oh,
took
we
beers to
should.
go.
You want to do the merch update, and we have a winner from our little
Oh
Rush
yes, we do, Scott. You
T-shirt
might want to
contest.
mention the winner because
Oh, I have it here.
you got it. So yes, on the merch, yes, you go to cfnydoc.com for the merch, and everything pretty much is in stock. I think we're just missing two of the sizes right now that hopefully should be back in stock soon on the 80s t-shirts, but everything else is there currently. And we will be adding in the not too distant future. You should be able to purchase the home version of the DVD and the Blu-ray as well. That has not only the extended mix on there, but a bunch of extras that never made the movie. Unfortunately, at this point, we're not shipping to the U.S., but Scott and I are going to figure something out because I know we got a few loyal listeners in the U.S. that want to get this stuff. So we'll find a way to either to mail it to you from my house or whatever. So I mean, whatever it takes, because we want to make sure that our friends stateside get what they need too. So anyway, that's the latest on the merchant. Who was our winner, Scott, on the
Darren Anderson. Darren Anderson. So we had this little contest where if you showed us, because Ivor showed a T-shirt that he bought off a guy, bought it off his back in the UK when you were there. And there was a picture of me, same year, 1977, the first Rush T-shirts we had, and I was at a high school dance. Anyway, we put it out there, and a couple people sent in their pictures. Thank you for that. And Darren Anderson is the winner. Thank you. It was his wife, Sharon, that sent the photo in. And he had a, same thing. I think it was Farewell to Kings T-shirt, which I had on too. It was just like 1977, and it still fit him.
That's the thing. He still had that same T-shirt from 1977. I mean, all the power to him. I don't think I've ever been able to fit into my high school weight T-shirts, except for a very short period in 1990 where I was entered a fitness contest, but never been able to since then. So,
but anyway, we'll be sending him a brand new CFNY Spirit of Radio 80s T-shirt that'll be in the mail. We'll be in touch with Sharon and Darren Anderson. Thanks for that. That's on our socials if you want to see the picture. We'll post it up again next week. Whole bunch of other stuff to cover here before we get to the week of April 20th to 26th. We've got some Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees were announced, and every year it's always a bunch of fantastic, and then a whole bunch of wow, I still can't believe they haven't.
Yeah,
put
this, I mean, here you go for a recap. Phil Collins, no problem. Yeah. Billy Idol, okay. Nice day for a white wedding. Billy Idol bigger in the States than he is most other places, so that's okay. Well overdue because they were eligible since 2005 is Iron Maiden. So dollars to donuts when they have that inductee ceremony in November in LA that Maiden fans, similar to what happened when Rush went in, it was like the Rush fans that when they went in were basically were noisier than any fans in that room. I think it's going to be the same for Iron Maiden. Well deserved. And the other one that's well deserved is Joy Division New Order.
Yeah.
I think they should have been in a number of years ago. Oasis, absolutely. Their comeback this past year is absolutely unprecedented. So they believe they should get it. Sade, Luther Vandross, and Wu-Tang. Well, yeah, I think, you read a lot about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, and it's really not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's celebrating the legacy of music. So it can be all genres. So, and the ones that, missed out, the main ones this year, INXS, Mariah Carey, New Edition, Jeff Buckley, Shakira, Pink, Black Crowes, who that was their second time round, and Melissa Etheridge. So, okay, maybe you can, they can look at it again.
Well, get to the back of the line like a lot of others still.
Yeah.
Right?
So the back of the line ones, I'd sort of think about those ones and ones that should be in. The Smiths have never been in.
Still not in. Wow.
Soundgarden, Jane's Addiction, Motorhead, King Crimson, Sonic Youth, Pixies, Jethro Tull, and then a couple of Canadian ones. I mean, I think, you know, the hip to me are deserving. So are the Guess Who, and so are Bachman Turner Overdrive would be, you know, worthy for me. But
See, that's amazing that I would have thought the Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive were in already. So
yeah, I
that's
mean,
shocking.
Guess
Yeah.
Who sold 30 million records, most of them in America. They were the number one band in 1970. So, I mean, I think a lot of it, you know, you get the voting committee, and as it's happened in Canada, that those people that are voting are people of a younger generation. So, your chances get less and less with each passing year. So, anyway, I did also want to mention our own David Marsden. Um, I didn't realize this because Dietz had mentioned this. He goes, "Well, David's the only Canadian in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in there twice. So he's in as David Marsden, but he was also recognized for what he did as Dave Mickey.
Dave Mickey. Yeah.
So I wasn't aware of that, but he's been in since 1998. So amazing that he still
Yeah.
has that. I guess we'd have to drill down to see if there's any more Canadians that have been in there since then. There may have been, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a few other things to touch on here. Do you want to jump in a little bit later?
Yeah.
We're going to talk.
So this was just something that I noticed, and you and I, you know, we talk about radio stuff or whatever, and we're both former radio guys. So we take interest in, you know, every once in a while things that happen in the business. And I'm looking through a little online publication, Broadcast Dialogue, and I see something come up last week, and it's like Edge 102 has now joined the chorus chain of radio stations, is now branding itself as iconic Edge 102, and I'm like, what? What's that all about, right? So I'm just like going, you know, it's like playing most of the classic alternative songs, and I'm like, all right. So anyway, well, what does that mean? So I go and listen to the Edge, and I go and look at the online, look at their playlist. I'm like, where's the new stuff? Like, you would think that the reputation that CFNY had from back in the Spirit of Radio days, and sort of our documentary that had come out earlier this year, and sort of the commitment to new music. And I was thinking to myself, well, last summer they had a whole bunch of bands that came in and played at Course Key, and like Wolf Alice and a bunch of other new bands that came in and did things. And I'm like, 5 songs this year? I said, I look at those CFNY playlist ads that Scott puts up on the postings for, you know, the 80s, and like any given week there'd be at least a dozen, 10 to 12, not only 10 to 12 songs, but those would include albums where the whole albums would go in too. So anyway, I just thought that was really concerning. And then I thought about Indy 88, which, you know, all of the hullabaloo with them over the last couple of years is the big competition to CFNY. And then I was informed, because I know that our friend Lana Gay was doing something at Ground Control, and I called our buddy Sadeep and said, well, how's that going with Lana over there? And he goes, well, we canceled it. And I said, why? He goes, well, they're playing top 40 on that radio station. They changed their format. And this was a number of months back. So they played, you know, a mix of alternative with top 40 stuff. So I'm like going, okay. So the big concern for me is that all of a sudden, you know, you had a city where we had 2 alternative radio stations, and now we have a city with 2 radio stations that don't play any new music, in an era where there's more alternative new music than there's been in practically a generation. So where does that leave these bands, other than you're going to hear it on Spotify and the other digital providers, but you're not hearing it on local radio, which is a real shame to me.
It is.
And
it is. And I think,
go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I'm not surprised, but it's sad. It's part and parcel of what's been happening to radio for some time now, slowly, is that, you know, we know that younger people just don't listen to the radio anymore, or hardly at all, or only when they're I remember going through a drive-through once, and I used to ask people, this is when I was still in radio.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, where you're at Starbucks, so they ask you a few questions there, because they're all, you know, chatting you up and being nice to you. And I remember saying, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing for the rest of the day? I go, well, I'm going back to work. And And oh, what do you do? And I go, well, I work in radio. And then I say, let me ask you a question. And this is the person that's serving me
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the window. And I say, they're about maybe, I don't know, 20. And I said, so do you ever listen to the radio? And there's like, they look up in the sky and they're like going and they go, oh yeah. When I'm in my parents' car, yeah, when we go somewhere, we'll put the radio on,
No, that's about it. Like,
Yeah.
it
And
is
so people are getting they're getting their new music from other places, from streamers, influencers, they're from YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
TikTok.
And radio's just not the place, which is sad because it's slowly given up on it where it should have fought for it.
Yeah,
But
well,
anyway,
it's I'm thinking about, this Departure conference is coming up, which is sort of the conference that replaced Canadian Music Week, and they have this Radio Days conference, and they've brought in the head of BBC Six Music this year, who's going to be doing one of the keynotes, and I'm like, wow, I want to go and see that. And I think about the documentary, and I think David said something, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may get the facts a little bit screwed up, but was talking about, um, that you grow with your audience.
yeah.
And BBC Six Music has done that. So there's
Yeah.
guys that in our age group who listen to it, but there's 20-year-olds who listen to BBC Six Music because they still have an offering of everything. So you'll hear all this new music, but at the same time you'll hear, something from the 70s or something from the 60s in that, and all these genres of music. And it's like, oh, how wonderful is that? It is still, to me, the most wonderful radio station in the world. And if somebody ever gave me my own radio station in a minute, that's what we would do. And I think, there wasn't, maybe you should tell this, or Alan should tell this in his interview for the book, is that Alan and I actually tried at one point, and we had an investor to take the 88.1 frequency before it was awarded. And then we realized that we were collectively way in over our heads because there's so much more that you need. And we would have
Yeah.
been very underfinanced. But I was willing at the time to, take my not so big fortune, but it, for what it is,
Yeah.
we could have kept on the air for a year maybe.
Yeah,
And it
before
was
you
like,
went broke.
yeah, and we were like, let's buy the Danforth Music Hall and change it into a radio station and make it a performance. And we had all these
Oh,
plans. We had this big investor, and it's like
oh, great.
we would have made it into Canada's version of Six Music, and so
That's cool.
anyway.
I would have listened. Hey, big difference, though, of course, as people would point out, it's, BBC is, public funded, so,
Well,
you don't have to worry about the sales. And that's the big
yeah.
difference.
The other thing though that is that I thought about, if that happened to CFNY. Let's say we were back in 88 and they decided we were still going to say alternative, we weren't going to play any music or any new music, that would have probably precipitated a grassroots movement by the listeners of going, what the fuck? And been a lot of pushback, right? I think that could have happened again. If you turn your back on especially a radio station that started the Unos and went into the Casbys that carried on for so many years, and like, well, what do we award for this year? We didn't play any of these bands' music, so it just feels to me like, reading it's like, oh, it's part of the chain. It's like, I just think about the uniformity in a lot of different businesses across the country. You're going to get the same thing in Edmonton that you're going to get in Calgary, that you're going to get in Toronto. So that's just, it's kind of unfortunate.
That big time sucks. Yeah. And it's no disrespect to those other towns, but everybody needs to have their own feel, their own culture, their own radio station. And yeah, it's Calgary and Winnipeg and now Toronto. Edge is going to basically have the same format. And it's all money, Ivor. It's all money to save money. It's what they've done, consolidated. You've got less staff. You have one person that's doing the music for X number of stations, and then voice trackings, a single person's doing, 4 or 5 shows across the country, et cetera. It's all about the money. And, the advertising has disappeared in
and I know that
droves from radio.
It's been the same for TV. Now, one thing I want to mention that brought me some happiness and some redemption. was this past week on the Edge Time Machine. They had decided to not single out a year. They decided to play the top records for every year on CFNY throughout the 80s. And as some people are maybe not aware, that after the mistake of 88, in 1989, there was no best of list. It just, so the 2 years in the history of the radio station up until the whatever they stopped, but there was no best of list in 1977, and there was no best of list in 1989. So they decided they would do a bit of research and reach out to people like myself and Robbie J. And there was another woman on there, I forget what her name is, but a fairly popular Toronto blogger, and asked for people's opinion on it. And so the consensus for the best record of 1989 was Pixies' Doolittle. Made me so happy because I was working that as a promo rep in 1989, and we had them when we were at Polygram. We had 4AD Records. And at one point, it was the #1 alternative record in North America and could not get it on the CFNY. So in 2026, the fact that they've turned it around and acknowledged that that is, to them, the top record of 1989 is great. And remember that there was also Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine, very credible. The Cure, Disintegration, a couple of other ones that were some pretty big records in 1989. So there you go. The #1 record of 1989, as voted by a small committee on the Edge Time Machine, is Pixies' Doolittle.
Oh, that's great. Hey, speaking of the 80s, there was, I don't know if you've seen or heard of this new TV series called Rooster.
I have heard a little bit about it, but
Okay.
I have not watched it.
Yeah, so I've only watched it's season 1. I've only watched the first episode. This is with Steve Carell. It's on Crave. Anybody, if you've not seen this yet, but listen to this. Listen to these songs just in episode 1, and it starts off like literally the very first episode, season 1. It starts right off with New Order, Age of Consent, right off the top. And then in the same first episode, it has Only Use Yazoo, Our Lips Are Sealed by Funboy 3, and Kiss Off by Violent Femmes. And apparently there's more classic alternative stuff in the series, but it's quite funny, quite entertaining. Steve Carell. Rooster. Wanted to mention that. Yeah.
I will not give in and get Crave. I get Darren Wazalik saying this to me all the time. Darren, the former promo guy at the Edge, and he's like, "So you watch this TV series, this documentary? It's on Crave." And I said, "I am not gonna get Crave just to watch that." And I've done it with Disney a couple of times. I broke down and got the subscription when they had the Sex Pistols series, and I think there was one other one. It might have been the Motley Crue one or whatever. But I broke down and got them twice. But you know how life goes. Like, you get it and go, I'm only going to get it for the series, and 4 months later, you've still paid for it and forgot that you had it. And yeah. there's $100 I could have used somewhere else. So anyway, so Scott, that's a little bit of a little tidbit that you had. I did want to mention, just a band that has come back and reunited after 10 years of being away is Alabama Shakes. And I don't know if you're a fan.
Oh, yeah. No, I love it's a female singer, right?
Yeah,
that plays the guitar. She's awesome.
It's absolutely phenomenal. So they have a new song out called American Dream, and it's a protest song, and it cuts pretty hard on a lot of things that are going on in the States right now. It's not the Crosby, Stills and Nash song. It is an original. It's really, really fantastic. So maybe we'll feature that on the program at maybe next week or whatever. But I did want to mention really cool new song by Alabama Shakes out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd like to see them live for sure. For sure. Did you want to mention the Stones? There's a new Stones record, but you can't get it. What's the story on that?
Yeah, like the Stones teased a new record this past week, and a single that's only available on vinyl. And I tell you, Scott, I went to all the places that you go and find, because usually I'll say, well, it's not on these places. Well, I found it. I could find it anywhere. So I went to all the places that you went to, and I can't find the fucking thing. So
wow.
So anyway, but there is a teaser out there with some maybe 20 seconds of the song. The song is called Rough and Twisted, or Rough and Twister. It's under the moniker The Cockroaches, which they used for the El Macombo show back in '77. The album is called Foreign Tongues. It's coming out July the 10th. It is their 25th studio album. And here's a little fact for you that just make you feel old. The band have now been together for 64 years. It's enough when the Beatles say when I'm 64, but when a band being together for 64
I know
years.
we were talking about Aftermath 60 years ago last week, and I'm like, wow,
Right.
you
And
know?
so, you go 62 and the is now 64 years.
Oh,
Andrew Watt, who did Hackney Diamonds, is the guy behind the production again. This first track is very heavy blues oriented, so kind of like the that uh, Blue and Lonesome record that they did as a sort of it came out very quickly. It really has that feel to it, and I'm hearing touring is probably not likely because Keith has had some health problems, but you never know. Maybe there'll be a residency or something. But I always look forward to Stone's releases. It was the last project. Hackney Diamonds was the last thing I did before I left Universal and retired. And I'd come out of retirement to work on a new Stones record any day. I always loved those.
yeah, I bet you would. Yeah. Did you want to talk about Coachella? We'll talk about it later, or
Yeah, I talk a little bit about it. I just seen there's lots of blogs out there, lots of videos up on Instagram and of all the performances and things. I mean, the main thing, for me is Wet Leg played last week, and Wet Leg, man, oh man, I just like Rhiannon Teasdale, like such a star, and she was
oh yeah,
covered in baby oil and these like crazy shorts, and like they had one of the songs that they do, and off the top of my head I can't remember the title, but they have a telephone on the stage and like, hello, 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 and then some woman comes on stage wearing like a pig's mask on her face, and they're going back and forth on this, and it's just absolutely wild. Like I think to me, they are, one of the most important bands of today. I can't wait when they come to Toronto in June because they're on that multi-bill with Lord and the Beaches playing at RBC Theater. But they blew the roof off the place last week, so they were great. Suicidal Tendencies reunion looked fantastic, and a lot of ink on the Bieber performance and all the celebs there. And of course, the other ink is how crazy the prices have gone on everything. It's a celebrity attendance thing now, um,
yeah.
or who because there's like $90 tacos, 400 dollars of liquor, um,
Nuts.
rental places, Airbnbs from 100 to $500,000. I mean, these are obviously the high end ones, but it just
Out of
makes.
control.
I mean, it is so out of control, but it looks great. There's something for everybody across every genre. It's just not something for um, my wallet. So I will probably
Yeah.
never attend
Well,
Coachella.
I do check out. I didn't this year, but I do check out the live feeds, and that's pretty good. They do provide that, and in previous years, and the quality and the stream, HD is pretty amazing.
It's really good. So you get to experience. I mean, just to see like the level of quality on that with the wet leg performance is absolutely phenomenal. So do we want to talk about some other concerts that were being announced this past week? Um, so the first one is the Strokes, who've also just come back with a new single, new record imminent. So they were just announced at the RBC Amphitheater on June the 21st. And the other one is, I mean, this is just 15 minutes down the road from me is the Jackson Triggs concert series. It's their, I believe it's their 25th anniversary doing these, and it's really great. So it's a 500 seat open amphitheater, um, bales of hay to sit on, and they've got these kind of lawn chairs that they bring out that are really comfy with your drink holders. So the lineup's being announced for 2026. They open on the 12th of June, 12th and 13th with the Sam Roberts Band, who perform out there performing their Chemical City album. Practically Hip on June 20th, Strumbella's June 26th, 5440 on the 3rd of July, Rural Alberta Advantage on July the 4th, USS July 18th, Matthew Good and his band on July 23rd. Choir, 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 which is always fun. They're basically going to do nothing but 80 songs to sing along with. And if
That's
you've
great.
ever been to see do something with Choir, 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 I mean, I took part in one with the Hip a couple of years ago, and it was great. It was so
Oh,
much
I
fun.
love Choir. I think it's fantastic what they've been doing, and some of their videos. If you've not seen or gone to one of the events, their videos are great on YouTube.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, the one with Rick Astley is hilarious.
Oh, right. No, I did see that one too.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Dallas Smith, August 7th. Chantal Kreviazak on the 8th of August. Band that I don't really know much about, but they got a trillion streams out there is Wild Rivers on August the 14th. July Talk are there on the 15th of August. Finger 11 are doing an acoustic show on the 22nd of August.
Great.
Followed by the Trues, 28th and 29th of August, 2 acoustic shows. Alan Doyle, September 4th. Big Wreck on September the 5th. Jim Cuddy Band on September the 11th. Colin James Blues Trio, Saturday, September the 12th. And finish off with 2 nights with Dwayne Gretzky, which is, fun party covers. I've never seen them, but I keep being told that they're a necessary band to go and see. 18th and 19th of September. So great season at the Jackson Triggs. And especially if you're coming down to Niagara for the weekend, you go into their website, by the way, and you can, they've got hotel deals and ways that you can connect to that, or you can come and stay at my place.
There you go.
We'll work something out. So
fantastic. Yes. And as I mentioned, it's like the venues, like the whole seating, there's some really, really nice setups. And I've been to a few, probably more than I would like to admit. Been to a lot of those vineyards down there. And also, just the other thing too is not just the wine, of course, but the food is. There's some great.
The food is great. Definitely, they really do it great on the cuisine. And the one thing about Niagara, it's like, it's certainly risen up because of those vineyards over the last number of years. But the culinary attraction has now become something very, very special. That a lot of these top-notch shelves are coming to Niagara and setting up shop. So the food quality has gotten very, very good.
Yeah, and there's a few microbreweries down there too that are excellent.
Yeah, you and I went to one last year when we were preparing.
Yeah, no, that was excellent.
One down there. So yeah,
I'll be back. We're gonna go again. All right, let's do some milestones, shall we?
Let's do that, Scott.
Okay, we're gonna do the '90s first. Okay, the week of April 20th to 26th. So in 91, April 23rd, Yes. Now, not just any old Yes. It's the original Yes. Like just about everybody played at this Sky Bowl, Skydome show. John Anderson, of course. Bill Bruford's in it. We got Chris Squire, Rick Wakeman, Steve Howe, all the guys, right?
Yeah, anybody.
That's pretty much the whole lineup.
Basically the classic Yes lineup. Probably one of the last times during,
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
played together because they kind of had that splinter into 2 Yeses, and to this day, John Anderson is still never reconciled with those guys. So, but really, it's only Anderson and Howe that are. I mean, I guess Bruford's out there too, as is Wakeman. But anyway. I did not go see that show. My only thing about anything that I saw at Skydome in the 90s, early 90s, when they started doing shows there, that they never got the audio quality down there, or the acoustics rather. The acoustics were every show that I saw there. One that I saw that was awful, and not for the band, it was just the acoustics in there, was Radiohead in there, and it was just like, oh my God, like. Radiohead are a much better band. That Yes are a much better band, but they just didn't have the acoustics in there. And
now if I was gonna choose a show to see Yes at the Skydome, no, I would pass on that just because of the acoustics alone. So I was just reading on the show had a revolving stage for that show. I don't remember ever having a revolving.
Yes, did have. Yes, actually, were one of the first bands to have a revolving.
Right, but at Skydome, the setup there, they must have obviously brought their shit for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they even had it like in the early 70s they had a revolving, because I do recall like hearing some reviews that they were that is something that, yes, we're big into, obviously very big into production very early in the game. So anyway, that continued, and there you go.
Yeah, okay. Also, 1991, this was April. The album Angel Food for Thought, Meryn Cadell, was released. And this, of course, had the sweater on it. If you've forgotten about that song, let's play a little clip here. I have it somewhere.
Is it sweater weather? It's still kind of sweater weather at this point, Scott. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm still in Costa Rica, but
Oh, not for you.
I understand you're having a good week right now.
No, we
where
are.
you
It's
are.
been 20 degrees, 22
Yes.
degrees. Not a bad thing, right? So,
Well, I'll be back next week. And just I'm down here partly for a little break, but also, and just in case anybody's watching on YouTube, I don't know if you still see the swelling here. I got a couple of implants, so it's still drooping on one side of my face here. Anyway, the sweater, and everybody remember this? Meryn Cadell, the sweater.
Girls, I know you will understand this and feel the intrinsic, incredible emotion. You have just pulled over your head the worn, warm sweater belonging to a boy. Now, you haven't had a passionate kissing session or anything, but you got to go on a camping trip with him and 8 other people from school. And you practically slept together, your sleeping bag right next to his. And you woke in the night to watch him as he slept, but you couldn't see anything because it was dark, so you just lay there and listened to his breathing and wondered if your heart might burst.
And it goes on. That was 28 on CFNY's year-end list in 1991, played as an album track. The song as a single wasn't released until 92, but CFNY, we played it off the album, and that got a lot of traction. A lot of fun. By the way, she is a he now, so that Meryn Cadell is officially a transgender man. Made the transition in 2003. So that's the update on Meryn Cadell. It's still a performance artist. I think doing writing and other such things currently.
Very good.
Okay. So here's what I wanted to play for you, Ivor. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but there's a thing in rave music called they call it the Hoover sound. So, and you and I both
just learned about that. So,
okay. So this is so we're talking about the track. This was evidently the very first time that this Hoover sound was created by American DJ producer Joey Beltram. The song was called Mentasm. I'll play a little clip of it here. There you go. So that sound, people, as they heard that and hadn't heard that sort of sound on a track before, someone came up with the term going, it sounds like a vacuum cleaner, sounds like a Hoover. And, as you know, being in the UK, Ivor, as me, anybody from the UK, they don't call them vacuum cleaners. They all call them Hoovers because that brand took, but Hoovers took over the market.
That needs a good hoovering. I remember that.
And so here's just one more example. You get the idea of how this sounds. So this showed up on another track called Dominator by Human Resource. Same kind of effect.
That's more Hoover.
Want to kiss myself?
Fantastic at raves because nobody had heard it sound like that before. And it was like, pretty wild. Full on techno. Good times.
I was thinking about the whole rave thing, and I was like, I never went to any raves. I don't think I was ever at a single rave. I mean, maybe some club shows because I had a band in town or whatever when I was with the label or whatever, but I don't think I went to any of them. And then and I think about, it's not so much my tolerance, but I'm just going, it is a culture that I just, it kind of passed me by, right? I was into other things, and occasionally I'll hear a song go, oh yeah, that's pretty good. But most of the time it's like, God damn it sounds like the same old shit to me. And not to say that one is, the Hoover stuff is kind of interesting, but
it's like what I was saying to you, it's like in the 90s, because I was so immersed into that culture, the rave culture and everything else going on with dance music, that I couldn't keep up with all the other stuff. So I'm kind of rediscovering alternative music of the 90s through this show, through you. And,
Right. So let me ask you a question on this.
Yeah.
Where is that music today? Because I don't really hear much about that kind of music today. It's kind of like what you played back in the 90s. It feels to me, and I could be totally wrong, that it didn't really progress that much further. It's a lot of this same very similar sound.
Yeah, you could argue that for sure. I mean, other people doing current music would argue to that. I think there's a lot of, remixing, sampling, and borrowing ideas and, remaking it. And certainly the technology and the quality of production got better. But there's still, some original stuff like that you can't repeat, and that stands up. And that's the same with any kind of music.
I will say, on what I do kind of like out of that culture is some of the things that have been remade into, a reworking of something that's a classic or something that's, a current, like The Cure did all of those remixes on their most recent record. And there was kind of like that. I don't know if you recall, there was it was called the Poolside Mix of Billy Idol's Eyes Without a Face. And those were, done by club guys. And I like those interpretations. That one that came out a couple of years back on the Kate Bush Running Up the Hill one, and some of the DJs that Don Letts employs to do some of these things. So those ones I think are kind of neat because I like the reinterpretations of those songs. Yeah. But a lot of the original stuff, I guess I just pass it by, or maybe I'm just not on the path to know what's hot and what's not right now.
Well, and that's my argument too, is that I'm not immersed into that scene right now. So I'm sure there's stuff, if I, spent some time, I would discover some stuff. And I'm sure there are new subgenres that come out. And I know, things were kind of the same for a while. And then dubstep came out and I was like, wow, this is cool. It's, it's borrowing some ideas, but it's a new thing. And I think, you could say that with the dark wave, which is kind of, a spin-off of goth and post-punk, they call it dark wave. So is it the same? Yeah, it kind of is, but it isn't. It's got a fresh new take on it, I think.
Well, it was the same with reggaeton too, that people say, oh, it's reggaeton. Right. That's the hottest stuff or whatever. And here I am in Colombia and the reggaeton stuff is all over the place. And I get into a car, the guy that we've hired, and he goes, oh my God, I'm so sick of reggaeton. Just give me some Deep Purple. Okay.
That's great. Okay, let's do the 80s.
Let's do the 80s.
Okay, a bunch to cover here. Week of April 20th to 26th. So, wow, let's do the mid-'80s here. We're going to do 1986, so 40 years ago. The Tinderbox album came out from Siousxie and the Banshees. That had Cities in Dust. Still one of my favorite Siousxie records, especially the extended mix we played on CFNY. That extended mix of Cities in Dust is fantastic. Still sounds great. Candyman was on the album too. The rest of the album, I'm not really. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But anyway,
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, Cities in Dust, that was a huge, goth dance floor hit. It was a kind of 80s breakthrough for her. It was funny, before we did the show this morning, and every morning I listened to BBC Six Music, and they were acknowledging this record today too. But what they had was, they have a song play off, and they said, what do you want to hear? Cities in Dust, or you want to hear Fleetwood Mac Rhiannon? Fleetwood Mac won, so we didn't get to hear the Siousxie song.
No.
Anyway, that's okay. Every once in a while, you can hear the odd Fleetwood Mac.
Anyway, I don't mind Fleetwood Mac. That's okay, but I would have taken the Siousxie. Next up, Heartbeat Like Thunder. So Ira and I had a good chat about this before the show. Heartbeat Like Thunder, Steve Harley.
Yes.
1986.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a colossal.
Should I play it first, baby? Let me play the track first.
Play it first.
I think it started by our conversation started was like you couldn't quite remember it, and I was like, yeah, I remember this song, and I went back and listened to it. And I'm like, yep, I totally remember this, and then we went from there. Let's just play a clip of it here. Hope I got it. This should be it. All right, I gotta fade it. I gotta be careful with our music on the show. Yes,
Yes, we
sometimes we get our wrists slapped for playing too much music. Okay, so yeah. So anyway, I totally remember the song, and I remember it being played on the station. And it took a little while, but then it came back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I do recall the song. Here's some interesting stuff. The only place in the world, and you can find this on Wikipedia when you put this into Wikipedia and look for this song, the only place that gave it any spins whatsoever was CFNY in the fucking world. Nobody touched it. It got to a whopping 172 on the UK charts for 1 week and then dropped off completely. It got awful reviews in the UK press. So it was not anything to me that has any significance in the career of Steve Harley. Now, the year before that, he had a song that was also quite successful, I think, on CFNY called Irresistible.
Yeah, good song.
Which came out the year before in 1985 and has ended up on his best of some of the best of collections that are out there. But then I was thinking to myself, and it's like, well, there was another album that we played at CFNY a lot in 1978 called Hobo with a Grin. And I'm like, and I have, for you people that are, watch us on YouTube here is the control room copy that from CFNY of Hobo with a Grin. And on the back there, it's we got a purple dot on one of the songs there. Anyway, but the Bruce Hating, who was the music director and program director at the time, said, yeah, good record, not as good as his others, though, but it's an okay. But there was a song on there that I went back and listened to, and we'll put it on the playlist if it's available, is I Don't Believe God's an Anarchist, which is absolutely phenomenal song. But then I look up the history of that album, and that was about as equally as unsuccessful as other Steve Harley records. But the only saving grace on that record that kind of saved it was there is a song on there that was one of the last recordings of Mark Bolan before he passed away, is playing on that record. So that's kind of like just for, T-Rex fans. Oh yeah, Mark Bolan's on that. But that album was also a bit of a stiff too. But the other song that we just played earlier at the start, that you played, it turned up on one of the hardest hits compilations. So it probably got a little bit more of a life out of that because Jeff Sprigg, who ran that company, thought that was a pretty good song too. But for me, in the Steve Harley catalog, if I got to vote on, give me out of 10, I'd give that like maybe a 4 out of 10 tops. I don't think it's very good.
A couple of things. One thing about that song, which is interesting, there were songs played on CFNY that if you think about them sonically, and as a record and a song, were kind of like, adult contemporary. They were kind of, soft rock, melodic, and, not really quote unquote alternative of what people think alternative. However, again, when I give that definition of alternative, meaning stuff that you can't hear anyplace else. It's the alternative to what's mainstream. And when that's not getting played anywhere else, it's alternative in that sense.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think people like that. So it's a little bit kind of schmaltzy a bit, but it's catchy.
Like if that was released today, you'd hear it on CHFI
Right.
That
Yes.
would be because it's
Well,
very,
if the artist, if the artist was known, that's the thing. Sometimes it's an unknown artist, and the other stations go, "I've never heard of them, so I'm not going to play them."
right.
Well, if you listen to the song,
And
yeah,
CFNY had a whole bunch of songs on the air at that time that sounded very similar to that. The sound was very interchangeable by that point in time, which is why you guys like you and me are going, when Prefab Sprout comes along and the House Martins come along and the Smiths come along, thank God for that, because there was just too much of that kind of synthy schmaltzy pop getting into the mix at that point. The world needed more guitars at that point, in my opinion.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, definitely there's trends of things for sure that certainly stand out. Anyway, it was good to just hear that again because I'd forgotten about the song, so that brings back memories,
There you go.
And here's a classic, 40 years ago this month. I'll play a little bit of Sinful.
There you go.
Wylie. Loved that track. Still love it. And Ivor, if you can, in the mixtape or the playlist you put together, if you can get the extended mix of that one in there, that'd be great if it's available.
It is. As a matter of fact, that's the only version that's available.
Okay, good. That's the one I like.
Yes. Interesting on that. We're going to get to Teardrop Explodes in a minute too. So prior to that, at one point, Pete Wylie, Ian McCulloch, and Julian Cope played together in a band all together called the Crucial Three. They actually rehearsed but never played a gig and never released a record. Maybe there were some demos that are out there, because I think you might find them on those Cherry Red compilations or whatever. But all they did was sit around and argue with one another. And Julian Cope ended up firing Ian McCulloch because he didn't show up to rehearsals one day. But they were Liverpool's the Crucial Three. So
wow, did not know that.
Pass that along.
Did not know that. Also out the same week, Au l'Amour, Erasure. That was a big record on CFNY at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. That one wasn't a big radio song, but it was a huge club hit in the States. And I think back to that going, yeah, you got to most U.S. clubs at that point, especially those ones in Buffalo and the ones in Niagara on the Canadian side too, that would have been something they would have heard all the time.
Definitely. Also, April 25th, 1986, 40 years ago, Breeding Ground, the album Tales of Adventure is released. They did it also part of their performance at Lee's Palace. And the album showed up as number 60 at the year-end 1986 album chart year-end list. The other thing I was going to mention about this is the one that Molly Johnson, was it? Molly Johnson sang on this one.
Co-vocal, or backing vocals or co-singing on Happy Now I Know. It was produced by Chris Wardman of Blue Peter fame, who went on to record some of the early hip demos, and they were on Fringe Records, owned by Ben Hoffman of the Record Peddler. That was their label. It was sort of a collaboration with the guys from Ready Records at that. And it's a number one college chart record. I don't know what that meant back in those days, because it was basically you'd call it in or whatever, same as that you would. There's no sort of rhyme and reason to it, but they go, that Breeding Grounds, it's heavy rotation.
Yep.
There you go.
Great record though, Breeding Ground. Happy Now I Know was the single off that with Molly Johnson.
Yeah,
who was in Altamota, right? Back in the day.
Molly is still active today as a jazz singer, still recording for Universal Music every year. There's always something. Still has a big following in France, believe it or not. So she goes over there and does business there. And Molly's a very nice lady. We like her a lot.
Yes, for sure. Same week, and this is April 23rd, was the kickoff of, for the first time, there were 3 shows by Level 42 at Massey Hall, their first time in Toronto. I was at one of the shows. Ivor, you were at one of the shows. I
I
think, right?
don't think I
Oh,
was. I don't believe I
okay.
ever saw Level 42 that I can recall. I think I was right in the middle of doing all these road shows at the time, and I think I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I did sort of do a little deeper dive that they came back that summer opening for Madonna at the CNE, and then the following year, they came back and played Maple Leaf Gardens in '87. So
Wow.
nice rise for Level 42. And it would have been interesting to see the reception in front of the Madonna crowd. I would imagine because they were such proficient musicians that they probably did okay.
Yeah, and I'd say Massey Hall would have been the place to see them. Those 3 shows at Massey Hall, I had it on my year-end list as one of my favorite live shows that year. Just that, the acoustics in Massey Hall and the proficiency of the musicians. Those guys are great musicians
Yeah, I mean,
and sold out shows. All 3 were sold out. It was yeah, just fantastic shows.
yeah, I agree on the Massey Hall. I mean, I remember seeing Roxy Music's first Canadian appearance at Massey Hall. I couldn't ask for a better place for them to play, as with many others. And people talk about the legacy of playing in Toronto, and usually it's like Massey Hall is one of their favorite places to play.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to finish off the 80s. We're going to dip into the early 80s. 45 years ago in April 20th, 1981, the release of Sound of the Crowd, Human League. This is going to be the very first single from the forthcoming Dare album. So this is the new Human League, if you will. And this is I think this is the first single where the 2 singers, the 2 girls are singing.
It was the first single that Suzanne Sully and Joanne Catherall on there. And it was their first collaboration with Martin Rushent at the time.
Right.
His earlier stuff had been with the Stranglers and some of the other sort of rising alternative bands, but that was their first collaboration. And what kind of brought that some great successes, particularly in the UK, is they went on Top of the Pops to perform it, and they killed it. They killed it that night. And of course, you and I laugh about this because whatever it was back in those days, and we talk about when Depeche Mode played their first show in Toronto and they had the reel-to-reel on stage. And there I'm watching this Human League performance on Top of the Pops this morning. They had 2 reel-to-reels on stage
Yeah.
with those synthesizers that they were playing at the time. But you could just see like they were really full tilt putting a great effort in, even though it's all lip sync, but great performance if you go online and check it out on YouTube.
Well, I think they're recording the Dare album at this time, and I've heard that just those sessions, it was all just a creative blend of new producer, and the 2, Susan and Joanne, were brought in originally just to be dancers, the side stage.
Yeah, they weren't musicians. They were
right.
They met them they met them in a club or a restaurant.
Yeah.
Or something,
well,
right?
as they say in the song, kind of I don't think they were supposed to sing either, and that sort of developed, and so you could see what was going on with them, and I think they were having a lot of fun.
I mean, I'd have to look it up, but I don't think either one of them ever released solo records. So I think you're right on that one. But listen, it was a great addition to the band and where they had come from a couple of years before, which was like super experimental on those earlier records. So that kind of really put them into the limelight with that. And we played the shit out of that song on the road show, and will still play it at our video road shows today. I think it's really stood the test of time quite well, in my opinion.
Yeah, classic track for sure. So at the same time, Human League are recording the Dare album, which would be out in October. The very same time, New Order are recording their first album. So again, they're still organizing themselves after the loss of Ian Curtis and figuring out who's going to sing.
Yeah, right? I know. It was kind of like they were actually a threesome at that point, right? Because Gillian didn't join until a little bit later.
Yeah.
But they'd done Ceremony in a Lonely Place earlier. They had done it when they did a couple of dates in the States. And they did it at Strawberry Studios in Stockport, which was the same place where Joy Division had recorded at the time. notable on that too is that was going to be for this movement record was the last time they worked with Martin Hannett. They obviously moved on to more synthy things after that, and Martin Hannett had some real, he had some real substance demons that they had to deal with at the time.
Yeah. So, and I think from what I understand about that is I think between Stephen and Bernard and Peter Hook, the three of them took turns on the vocals.
Yes.
And nobody was 100% sure who was going to sing.
Well,
and it was,
I mean, like Hooky does Dreams Never End and, whatever, I don't know, Ceremony or whatever, but I think obviously Bernard in the long run taken over, and that sort of helped Hooky out. And then when Gillian arrived, because I think Bernard was doing some of the synth stuff too at the time, and then when she arrived, it was
just made it easier.
Became more of a comprehensive band. I saw something really stupid on them too, is when the band got finally got the first synths with the synth sampler that got in, or the samplers that they got, was the first thing they did was record their own farts. Which is like, okay, well, typical young guys, right at the time. That was the really important thing. And in those days, a synth with a sampler was probably $80,000 at the time too. So,
yeah, you met the record company just saying, okay, we're gonna front you this new machine here. It's gonna revolutionize the sound of the album and your whole career. What do you guys come up with?
Yeah, here we go. But remember, it was factory records where it was all a handshake and very little paperwork, and they eventually really shot themselves in the foot for overspending on a ton of different things. And anyway, the legacy's great. The financial situation took a long time to get themselves clear of that.
April 24th, 1981, the release of Searching for Heaven, Pauline Murray and the Invisible Girls. I got a little clip here to play. Phil, that was a song maybe you would hear on the Ivor Hamilton Import show.
You absolutely, Scott, you're 100%. You would have heard that on my show. I did get to see Penetration. They played The Edge. That was also Pauline Murray's, was part of that band prior to that. And the Invisible Girls were short-lived because it had Martin Hannett in the band, along with the guitarist who's uncredited on that song is Bernard from New Order, Wayne Hussey, later of The Mission, John Mahar of the Buzzcocks, all part of the Invisible Girls, and Steve Hopkins, keyboard player as well. So anyway, that's a band that obviously everybody went on to very successful other things, not so much for Pauline Murray, but the rest of the band did.
I didn't realize who else was on that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, exact same day, release of Treason, the remix from Teardrop Explodes. I hope I have the remix here. Not sure, but we'll find out.
Get it on there, right?
Is that the remix? Because it was out earlier, I guess.
I think the remix is not that radically different. So
okay.
I will say on Teardrop Explodes, to me, that's one of those CFNY bands, along with Japan and a few other ones. You want to identify bands that were strictly CFNY. Teardrop Explodes are. I got a good picture of Julian Cope visiting CFNY. Came up, in that time frame in the early 80s. So the Kilimanjaro record was the one that I think we showed the most love to on the radio.
Yes. Great record. Quick mention here. I just put this in my notes that there was a radio documentary released, and you might have heard this back in the day. But anyway, this was it was first aired in the U.S. April 24th, 1981. It's called The Beatles: The Days in Their Life, and it was a radio documentary put together by David Pritchard, who was the very first program director of CFNY, who was also on Chum FM back in the progressive rock days. Very cool guy. And Alan Lysak also worked with him on this particular radio special. And I was just mentioning to you, Ivor, we talked prior, just that he had the idea of, because he was a big Beatles fan. Well, actually, David and Alan were both big Beatle fans and had a lot of material, and we're working on this, but also talk to radio stations and other players in Canada about, hey, would you support and would you air and help sponsor this whole Beatles documentary idea thing? What do you think? And it was like, hold on, pass. So he ended up to take it. He took it down to the U.S. A company called TM Century out of Dallas, Texas, does a lot of jingles and radio production stuff, and they backed it. And so it was out in the U.S. first, and then once it got out in the U.S., and of course all the trades and billboards writing about it, they're like, everybody in Canada is like, oh, we want to air it. We want to air it now.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I tried to do a deep dive on it, just doing some prep for this, and I could not find the Canadian connection whatsoever on that, other than that there was some competitive Beatles specials that came out during that time frame. But the company that you mentioned, if you sort of do, use AI or use any of these other things to search for stuff, credits that U.S. company and nobody in Canada, as much as that they tried to do it. Yeah, it's really strange.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, but anyway, I was trying to find some actual audio from it, so I'll try to see if I can find some.
Yeah, if you find
actually.
Because I remember that series pretty fondly. Like they did it, here's something that doesn't really, it doesn't exist that much anymore because of radio doesn't play these specials. Back then they were committed by CRTC, but in the States they didn't have those regulations, but they still played them. My time at Universal is, and we talked about doing these many, many times. It's like, these anniversary releases would come up, and it's like, we should do a radio special that we can offer out to everybody. And so we ended up doing a couple, or we would get some. The UK would still put them together. And guess what, Scott? Nobody would take them. And very few people would take them. They'd go like, well, we'll use 2 minutes of it or whatever. And so I took a couple of them and used them. Some ones I did a Sting one. Somebody put together a Sting one, and I used it on NY the Spirit and used it and ran that as a Sting special. But nobody else would take it. But somebody in the States knew that I was doing this radio show and said, "Well, how would you like a Sting special to run?" And I was like, you know what? Why the hell not, right? Because anyway, it's a shame, but it's a lost art, I think, these days of these.
Oh specials. Yeah. It's so true, so true. And David Pritchard, we lost quite a few years ago. Alan Lysak, by the way, I was in touch with him, maybe a couple of years ago. He's living in Spain now. He's a writer. He's written a bunch of books. I don't know if anybody's heard of it's a book called The ABCs of Making Money, which is it's a book for teens.
Oh, for teens. Oh, I thought
we should read it. Yeah, we're at that level.
Yeah, you and I should get that for this program with our thousands of sponsors that we have.
Totally. But I remember talking to him about it when he was writing, and I was like, he's like, I'm doing it's basically a business book for teenagers, so they can understand how money works and not how not to get fucked when you're, going through this process of life. Anyway, and it's done him really well, and he's written some other books, but that's Alan Lysak.
Well, I think those are great life things to have. It's funny, there was a stat that I heard the other day that really got me thinking, and it was a U.S. stat saying that currently more people are now leaving the U.S. than are coming to the U.S., which I wasn't aware of.
Wow.
And it talked about the amount of people and how much it had gone up to people moving to Portugal, moving to Spain, moving to France, all of these places around the world where Americans are fed up with the U.S. getting up and leaving, and now less people coming in than leaving. But I just thought to myself, I wonder what that's like in Canada too, because I think for the first time this past year, our population went down. So I don't think people are leaving here so much as dying, but not as many people coming in, which I know this is not our wheelhouse.
Well,
but
no, it's okay. I think it's also just there are people just having less babies. There have been less babies being made.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's also too for, end of life experiences or things they want to relocate and move to other places. And America is not so much it anymore. And so people move on to other places where they find what their life's like. I saw another thing with two people that had moved, from the US back to China, and that would be unthinkable years ago. And now it's like, it's an option because they would move to America because there's less opportunities, but now there's more opportunities in China for most people.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. That'll be another episode.
Yes. Another podcast.
Another podcast. Okay. So also 45 years ago, this month, I'm just guessing at this because the album of which this song is on came out in February, and CFNY latched onto this particular cover version of a classic that got so much play and still, I think, is everybody's favorite version of the classic Somewhere Over the Rainbow. We're talking about Toby Swann. Here's a little clip. That's great. Still sounds good.
Big song for CFNY at the time.
Toby Swann, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And to finish off the 80s, we've got April 24th, 1981, OMD at the Concert Hall. I'm pretty sure I was there. Ivor was there, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I would have been there. And I was going to say too, Scott, if you watch the CFNY documentary, the front-facing footage is of OMD on stage. The shot of the audience is at the Royal Albert Hall because we couldn't find any back footage, just so you know.
Yes.
Little secret about the film, little behind-the-scenes thing about the film.
Yes. I remember we're going through, as Ivor and I, as executive producers, and we're going nitpicking every little detail of the film. This is way back, years ago. And then I remember seeing this footage, and there he is, and Andy is saying, I think it was Andy. Yes, they were saying, and our very first biggest show in North America was in Toronto, and at the concert hall, and their footage is on the screen, and I'm going, that's not the concert hall.
You and I lost our marbles on that. We were going to have
it was like, you got to change that. It's not the concert hall. And then we soon learned, because we are not filmmakers, we soon learned that, you know what, guys? No one's going to notice. Yeah. Well, maybe a half of 1% might notice. Two people might notice.
Thank you to Mike Downey for bringing you and I back down to earth. And he's like, for God's sakes, Ivor, let it go. Okay, Mike. Thank you.
So if you're seeing the documentary, the original or the extended, you will see OMD supposedly at the concert hall. That's not the concert hall, but just pretend it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Royal Albert Hall. Kind of reminds us of the concert hall, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, it was a big gig for them because they had only played the tiny little edge for their first.
They said as soon as we cross the border, then we're back playing little shitholes, right?
That's true. That's true. So good for OMD because Toronto loved OMD, obviously driven by CFNY, but and the rest, Southern Ontario, Western New York took to the band too. Yes. By the way, what do I have here? Oh, that was the tape number 39. I wish we had that tape to play.
Yes.
But that might have been lost over the years. Okay. Shall we do, your favorite part of the show, birthdays? We get to
Oh,
play
here we
Altered
go.
Images again.
All right.
I won't let you suffer through the rest of it. So we have a couple of milestone birthdays. Paul Carrick turns 75. If you don't know that name, you know, he was, I guess you become bigger sometimes by the sort of session work and work you do on so many other people's records that the name yourself. Although he did have one big hit record himself, didn't he?
Yeah, he
Paul
did.
Carrick.
He did.
Don't Shed a Tear. Yes.
Yeah.
But Paul Carrick was known for, he sang in Squeeze, he sang for a bunch of other bands and wrote a whole bunch of songs too.
Happy 75th.
So he's 75.
75.
75. And David Usher of Moist and solo career at turning 60 this week.
Very good. Happy birthday, David.
Okay. Now we'll talk about people who we've lost and people who've died. We're going to start by a couple of sort of classics. And this is just hard to believe. We had this with David Bowie just recently. We're also hitting the 10-year point for Prince. Incredibly, it was April 21st, 2016 that we lost Prince. I just can't believe. I mean, the Bowie thing was one thing, but just it still doesn't sound like it's been 10 years that since Prince died.
Very sad for sure. Never met the man. I did see him in concert, and we used to, especially in the Purple Rain era and a little bit before, we used to play a lot of his stuff, and it used to go down really well, especially on the road shows. And I was really fortunate in my time as a promo rep that I got to go to Paisley Park and go down and see all the Prince archives, the rehearsal studio. Got to see all of his onstage costumes that they had little bustiers in the whole facility at Paisley Park that were all fitted to his size. So they had all these hundreds and hundreds of costumes that were all there at the same time. And one of the engineers took me down to the vault and he goes, "We could put out records for 100 years. There's so much stuff that was in the vault." So I'm always thankful for that. And they also had a giant rehearsal space built at Paisley Park that was basically the size of doing an arena show that they could accommodate in there. So They were set up for everything in there.
And I would love to see that. And they still do tours there, as far as you know.
Well, I mean, we were there. I was actually there with one of our artists at the time, so there was no tours at the time. But I think there is some kind of limited tours that you can do out there in Minnesota. It's out sort of in a industrial park like you would see maybe in Brampton, back in the day, or any other sort of city that has these industrial parks. It's very unassuming of where it is.
Yeah, I've heard that for sure. Also, a year ago, David Thomas of Perubu passed away.
Sort of like one of those post-punk pioneers from the early 70s. Not everybody's taste, but I really liked the records, and unfortunately, I was able to work with him and spend some good time with him in my early days at Polygram, and so we'll always be grateful for that. And one of the U.S. Midwest's most experimental bands of the start of the post-punk era.
Also, when we just lost, and they're talking about people we lost in the past week or so here, Africa Bambaataa, age 68, and I haven't heard from him in some time, and then all of a sudden I just opened up or turned on my phone. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, sadly missed, very influential, especially during the 80s. And you remember that Time Zone record that he did with John Lydon, and
World Destruction. I love that.
Destruction.
That's great.
A bunch of other things. I met the gentleman once at the New Music Seminar in New York, and he was a super nice guy, really, really great guy, very accessible at the time. So he will be missed greatly.
Yeah, and especially Planet Rock. I mean, that the year was like 82 for Planet Rock, which was a track that was just so ahead of its time, and just one of the early sounds of hip hop, that electro hip hop sound at the time, and just groundbreaking. Africa Bambaataa. Okay, also we lost Moya. I don't know if I heard her name correct here. Is it Moya?
Moya Brennan. Yeah.
Yeah, Moya Brennan. of Clannad at age 73 passed away. So that was a surprise.
Yeah. And then we lost Canadian promoter Donald Tarleton, as he was known in the entertainment business, though, as Donald K. Donald, and particularly if you lived in Montreal in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, that Donald K. Donald would work in step with CPI, and he would be the promoter of all the major shows that came into mainly the Montreal, Ottawa area. And he was larger than life. He was probably one of the most respected and well-liked promoters anywhere. And I got to see it firsthand when I worked with Bon Jovi when they were doing a cross Canada tour in the early 90s, and they were playing in Halifax, and the band could not wait to see Donald. And Donald comes out to Halifax, and they're just like, "Oh man, Donald, you were the best promoter." And the band had a day off in Halifax between shows. And so what Donald did for them at the time was John Bon Jovi had a movie coming out, his first major movie that he was starring in. It was a Hollywood production. It was a rom-com. And so Donald went and rented out a major Cineplex in Halifax, closed it to the public. So the whole band, the whole crew, and I got to go too, which was great. They rent out the theater, bring in catering, bring in everything, booze and stuff. And they showed the Die Hard movies. But in between, John didn't know it. Donald managed to get himself a copy of the trailer for John's movie, and the band and all the crew laughed their heads off at John. Go, "What, that movie sucks, John." Like it was so great. But everybody absolutely loved Donald, and that was not only with Bon Jovi, but he had a reputation in the business across North America and everywhere that one of the greatest promoters. So he will be sadly missed in this country.
I've seen so many posts on him, and I've heard there's so many stories. So if you don't know about Donald K. Donald, maybe do some reading. I'm sure you're going to come across some pretty funny stories because they don't make guys like that anymore, right?
They do. They absolutely do not. But he was a star in his own right and well loved, and a lot of respect for him.
Okay, and just finally, you sent me this one. I wasn't aware. Al Gunn, one of the original bass players, original members of Men Without Hats.
Without Hats. So sad to see him go.
Okay, we're running out of time. We're going to cover the 70s real quick. Going back 50 years, believe it or not. We're going to start off with some BTO in just a second. All right, 50 years ago this week, the week of April something or other. What was the week? Where are we? April 20th to 26th. Okay, we got BTO up first, so they released and surprised everybody with a song called Looking Out for Number One from Bachman Turner Overdrive. And I guess when everybody first heard it went, huh?
Well, what? You got Bachman Turner Overdrive, and people just like a meat and potatoes, down and dirty rock and roll band.
Four on the floor rock, yep.
That's what they were. But you got a guy like Randy Bachman, who was also a big jazz fan. And Dave Brubeck, the guy who does the Take Five song, was a big influence on him. And so he wanted to show the band in a different light, that we were capable of doing other things than just playing straight ahead meat, potatoes, rock and roll, and thus Looking Out for Number One. And it's a song that he is, to this day, one of the songs he's most proud of as BTO.
Yeah, and you know what? Good for Canadian radio to play it too, and it have played it ever since, of course, because sometimes when a band you're used to, okay, where's the next BTO song here, and you slap it on, and the music directors and program directors of radio stations going, what do we do with this?
Yeah, they didn't think those things through too much in most cases, but what are you going to do?
But it's like that's good when you've got fans, a strong fan base, and they love the band, and like, hey, okay, let's check it out. Let's keep our minds open and ears open, and we're digging it. We're digging it. So, incredibly, it's been 50 years since the debut album from the Ramones. It was released April 23rd, 1976. And think of that, it's 50 years old, and it still is in the top 100 of Rolling Stone magazine's 500 greatest albums of all time. It sits at 47, and that's 50 years later. That's stunning.
It's stunning because the record didn't sell anything. The record never sold in those early days, and
it took forever. Yeah,
it sort of, you had that small circle of rock critics in Los Angeles and New York are like, they're touting the Ramones, they're touting Patti Smith, they're touting television, but the rest of the country's into Boston and Meatloaf and Fleetwood Mac or whatever, and those are the records that are the people are going to buy at that point.
Right. So on that note, Ivor, so that's what strikes me the most. We talked about this a little bit before about Blitzkrieg Bop, about the other music that was out at the time. So I just this short list here of these. Here are some big albums that were released the same month or just the month before or the month after. So you've got the Ramones album out, and the same albums released around the same time were Black and Blue, the Rolling Stones, Rocks by Aerosmith, Agents of Fortune with Blue Oyster Cult, Fly Like an Eagle, Steve Miller, and Wings at the Speed of Sound by the Wings. And then you've got the Ramones album, and it's like, this is another planet, right?
It was totally another planet, and only a couple. So July of '76 is when the Ramones made their first trip to the UK, and they played a couple of nights at the Roundhouse, which is a pretty fair-sized venue. But everybody who was anybody showed up to those shows, and that kind of kicked the punk era into high gear, and I think really kicked it back to the U.S. But also, like a couple of months after that, they were here in Toronto playing the New Yorker for the first time too. That the Garys brought them in to do that. So you know, there is that amazing legacy to it, but it took forever and ever. And I recall that it was such a different sound at the time. It really, you know, for most mainstream people that were into all of these other things, is that the only song that really kind of cut through was Blitzkrieg Bop, and that was just a little bit, but it took a long time. And in hindsight now, I mean, as we know from people like Sirius XM and Little Steven's Underground Garage and a few places that are similar, they have made the Ramones bigger now than they ever were. And you know, the unfortunate part about it was that the band was never able to reap that financially. I suppose, you know, if they did due diligence and had good wills together, that the families are reaping that benefit now. And I certainly love the fact that, like every sports, you can't have a sports compilation that comes out without Blitzkrieg Bop on it. And certainly, you know, the rest of that album is fantastic too.
Well, and just think of, and I talked about this at the top of the show about that Rooster series and how many, you know, look, in that one episode, there was like 6 or 7 songs in that one episode. So what do they call it when they license songs for, you know, film and TV series?
Syncs. Okay. Syncs.
Yeah. And so, like to your point is that, so maybe the families of these people can benefit from all the money made from the syncs, because, you know, Blitzkrieg Bop is going to be played and used in TV series and films, like on and on and on.
Yeah, it'll never go. I mean, you kind of take Blitzkrieg Bop and you know, look at it sports. You got Blitzkrieg Bop and Crazy Train. They never go out of favor with sports fans at arenas that, you know, that they pay residuals and those TV syncs for sports, and obviously for movies. And there are negotiations to be had. I did when we were my days at Universal, we did a sponsorship for the World Cup of Hockey in 2004, and we did a music compilation around that. I couldn't do the compilation without having the Ramones on it, but I remember at the time it was pretty reasonable to get it on the compilation. And then EMI did a competitive one, and they had it on theirs too. Right? So it's out there in many compilations.
It's all good. It's all good. So the very same day the Ramones released their debut, the Rolling Stones released Black and Blue. And how many albums in are we at that point? Wow.
I don't know what the number count was on that, but I mean, we certainly remember that's Ronnie's first record, and he's still the new guy in the Rolling Stones after 50 years, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Also here, April 20th, 1976, Supertramp played Maple Leaf Gardens. Think about that. Just the year before, they had played Massey Hall, and the album, of course, Crisis, What Crisis, is exploding in Canada, one of their best territories. And all of a sudden, they're playing 17,000 people at Maple Leaf Gardens. Everybody in Canada was a Supertramp fan.
And I will counter that, Scott, that I saw Supertramp in December of 1975. So within 5 months of that, at the Plymouth ABC Cinemas for £1.20. So that is your disparity between Supertramp in the UK, their home turf, and here in Canada. Clearly, Supertramp were not nearly as big in their home territory as they were in Canada.
That's funny. What was the venue seating for that place?
It would be like going to a Cineplex. It was probably, like one of the bigger Cineplexes. I bet it was 1,000 people, if that.
Also, April 1976 is when Parliament released Get Up the Funk, Tear the Roof Off the Sucker, classic track.
Yeah, I mean,
and go ahead.
I was going to say on that is if you go to Washington, D.C., if you get an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., a must visit is the National Museum of African American History, because Parliament's original mothership is part of the permanent exhibition on display at that museum, along with the technology that they brought forth, concert footage and much more. Because the mothership was something else. I mean, I know ELO kind of had their flying saucer at one point, but the mothership, like no other funk band, had anything like that. And to know that it's on permanent display at the National Museum of African American Heritage, which everybody should just go and see anyway, because I think it's one of the best museums in all of the U.S., if not anywhere. It's really, really fantastic. They also have a 70s record store reproduced in that store, so people can go in and go, this is what it was like to be in a record store in the 70s. Phenomenal. So.
That's cool. And what those guys wore on stage too, eh? Oh,
pretty
hilarious.
Crazy.
It was.
Give it up for George Clinton, man.
It was. And we're on the 50th anniversary of the release of the song Afternoon Delight from the Starland Vocal Band. So as a little treat, what I thought we'd play here is a clip from Anchorman.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Did I say that loud?
Hey, you pretty much yelled it.
Well, I can't help it. It's fantastic.
What's it like, Ron?
The intimate times? Out of sight, my man.
No. The other thing. Love.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, it's tough to explain.
I think I was in love once.
Really? What was her name?
I don't remember.
That's not a good start, but keep going.
She was Brazilian. Or Chinese, or something weird. I met her in the bathroom of a Kmart, and we made out for hours. And then we parted ways, never to see each other again.
I'm pretty sure that's not love.
Damn it.
I love carpet. I love desk.
Brick, are you just looking at things in the office and saying that you love them?
I love lamp.
Do you really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it?
I love lamp. I love lamp.
You really want to know what love is?
Yeah.
Yes, tell us.
More than anything in the world, Ron.
Well, it's really quite simple. It's kind of like... Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon delight. My motto's always been, when it's right, why wait until the middle of a cold, dark night? When everything's a little clearer in the light of day. And and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight. Rubbing sticks and stones together, making sparks ignite. And the thought of loving you is getting so exciting. Sky rockets in flight. Woo! Afternoon delight.
You guys have it, I think.
Afternoon delight.
I don't know, Ron. That sounds kind of crazy.
Sounds like you have mental problems, man.
Yeah, you got mental problems, man.
Yeah, it really does.
Man.
Afternoon delight.
Never tire of that.
I think I'm going to have to go back and watch Anchorman. I think
I know. I mean, it just, yeah.
Anyway,
There's so many bits in that film. Oh man, it's so funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, a couple of quickies to finish. Going back to the 60s, we don't do that very often, but when it's a classic and a big one, it was 60 years ago that Wild Thing by the Troggs released. And interestingly, we just talked about Chip Taylor the other week, who wrote that song, who just passed away, right?
Passed away, and that the Troggs came to CFNY when they reunited, and I think it was 79. And I was charged with going to pick them up. So I drove downtown to the hotel and put the band in my car. And then I remember Reg Presley saying to me, "You're going too fast. You're going too fast," because we were trying to get back to the radio station for an interview on the air. But I remember Brad McNally interviewed them, and he absolutely loved them. And, the Troggs had that reputation of not being too good. They were sort of a so-so band, but they all admitted, and they're going, "Yeah, we're not too good. We don't rehearse that much. We just go and do our thing or whatever." But I remember what they played the Horseshoe, and it was an incredible show, and they were much better than they gave themselves credit for. And the Troggs weren't from London; they were from the West Country, right? So they were kind of like West Country Hicks that had a couple of big rock and roll hits back in the day. And of course there was always those tapes. Do you know about the Trogg tapes, Scott?
No.
So the Trogg tapes were kind of, they made their way around the rock and roll committee in the late 70s, or rock and roll community rather. And they were them in the studio, the tape was rolling between takes, and they were just swearing their heads off. Everything was, we fucked that up. Another fucking lousy take or whatever. And it made its way around. So look up the Trogg tapes, and it's just, just like really sort of bad banter between songs that became very, very famous. But
the Trogg tapes, I got to check that out.
Anyway,
wow.
So between that and Love Is All Around, and the song that was famous by theirs too, With a Girl Like You. And I played them. There was a band called one of the guys who was in the Flamin' Groovies, Roy Loney. Roy Loney and the Phantom Movers had done a cover of that, With a Girl Like You, and I played it for the Troggs, and they were totally impressed. I was like, wow. "Oh man, I got to play the band a cover version of one of their own songs that they never heard before." So my little Trogg story. And I got my greatest hits album signed by them too. And we've got in our slideshow too. Our slideshow on the documentary tour. One of the shots is of the Troggs at 340 Main Street.
Right. Okay, cool. Excellent. Yes. And we'll see everybody at the, what are the shows again? What are the dates?
We are next week on the 25th. We are in Vancouver at the Hollywood Cinema, followed by the 29th of May at the Town Ballroom in Buffalo. And we come home to Brampton on the 6th of June at the Cyril Clark Theater.
Okay, we ran out of time, Ivor. We'll say goodbye for this week, and you can find us on our socials every day. We've got some music milestones to remember and reminisce about. So thank you again for tuning in, and I guess it's not tuning in, listening, right, Ivor?
Listening and viewing.
Yes, there you go. Okay, thanks, everybody.